Okay guys, so for today we're going to talk about how to warm up appropriately for a squat day. So if you are looking for, just as a baseline, we're going to say if you're going to do 5 sets of 5 and you're going to work around 80% or 80-ish% for your 5 sets of 5, we're going to go over some of the things you would like to do to warm up and some of the things you can do to change it based on how you feel in the day. Now, some of the things we're going to do, we're going to stretch certain muscles, and we're just going to act like everything's tight or everything's restricted. Some days you may be sore or tight in different muscles or different areas because you've worked out previous days, and sometimes you might not be. So how much of this you do and how much of the warm-ups or the stretching that you do, depending on your squat day, it might be very dependent on what you've done before and what is actually tight on the day. So we'll get started. The first thing, whenever I'm warming up, I have percentages I usually go off of for different sets and reps. I always start off with the bar. Okay, even if I'm going to go for a 1 rep max, I'm always going to start off with the bar. And so what I'll do is I'll grab the bar, I'll take it out, and I'll make sure I'm squatting all the way down into depth. Now, when I say depth, I mean hip crease below the top of the knee, just like in CrossFit or powerlifting, or really any type of deep barbell squat. And so you're going to make sure that you take the bar out and you go through your breathing appropriately and correctly, and you really work on getting your belly tight. So I will take the bar out immediately. First thing, make sure my back is nice and tight on the bar, drive it up, take my walk out, and even though I'm using the bar and it's a very low percentage of what I'm capable of doing, I'm going to make sure I set my base where I want it. I'm going to make sure I get a nice big breath. I tighten my belly, I come all the way down into the bottom of the squat, make sure I get appropriate depth, drive up, and breathe out. Same thing. I'm going to do it for 8 reps, and then I will wrap it. Then, by the time I do that first squat, that first set, and you want to make sure you're doing it with intent, you're breathing correctly, you're getting down into the bottom of the hole. You don't want to go into the squat and just start pumping out reps without any thought. You want to have intent, okay? Because if you're not thinking about the things you need to do when the weight is heavy, you're not going to squat correctly here. You're not actually going to be warmed up for the weight you're going to squat later. After that first set, I should know, okay, maybe my quads are tight, or maybe my glutes are tight, or my low back. And that's where I would start to work in other movements while I'm warming up for the squat. So the first thing I like to do in terms of rolling out is I'll roll out my glutes and I'll roll out my low back. And so I might do that first set and say, okay, my back is a little tight. I'll sit on the foam roller. I'll roll my glutes just a little bit, maybe 10 passes. Maybe if I find a spot that's really tight, I'll sit on it for 10 seconds. Then I'll come down to my lower back and I'm going to stretch and roll over for the entirety of my lower and upper back. If your low back is tight, that means your upper back is probably a little tight as well. You can also, when you get to the top, stretch over the roller here. Really reach back. You might hear some popping or cracking. You might have your joints move. And then you'll come all the way back. And then you'll roll up. Now when you roll up, your shirt might catch. You might have to reach back, grab your shirt, and pull it down with you as you get to your upper back. And so you'll want to roll through that 5 or 10 times, go all the way through. And then okay. So my back feels a little bit better. Maybe I'll also roll out my glutes. Now, when you're rolling out your glutes, you're going to create a figure 4 with one leg. So if I want to roll my left side, I'm going to bring my right knee up, and I'm going to tilt to this left side. I'm going to make a figure 4 with my legs. I'm going to make sure that this leg is pushing into the ground. That way it can control me rolling back and forth. And I'm going to put my hand down on the ground. That way I brace myself so I don't fall off the roller. And I'm going to move back and forth and roll my glutes. Now, if I have a tighter spot in my glute up here toward the top, where most people will, I will press down on it for 10 seconds. That way, I take away the blood supply to the muscle and it has to relax. Now, most people will use a foam roller for this. I typically like to use a PVC pipe that I can get from the plumbing department of Lowe's for $6. It will last a lot longer than a foam roller, and it's a lot tougher than a foam roller. I've been doing this a while, sitting on a foam roller now, I just flatten the thing out. Most people though will have to start with a foam roller. They're not going to be very comfortable in this. Now, if this is not specific enough to get your glutes in that position, you can also use a yellow softball. Okay, you'll lay on the softball here, get that figure 4 motion, and you'll be able to more accurately pinpoint where on your glute to hit. And if you get a tight spot, obviously sit for 10 seconds, let that guy relax, and then you move on and you roll through your glutes. Now, if this is not specific enough and this is too painful, you can also go against the wall. Okay, so you can take it, put it in the glute, and you can lean up against the wall and roll. Go back and forth, down and up. Really allowing you to loosen up your glutes. Now, another thing you can do to loosen up your low back, after you've targeted your glutes and your low back, for your rolling, you can also do a plank or you can do a weighted plank. So if you're going to do a plank for warming up for squats, what you're going to want to do is put your hands in more of a supinated position or an upward position facing the roof. You're going to get on your elbows and your toes. And a lot of people, when they do planks, they sink it too far. You want to have it a little higher up. It's better to have your plank too high than too low with the hips, because if you go too low, your core, your belly is going to turn off. Those muscles aren't going to be working, and neither are your butt muscles, your glutes. So you want to have it up here. You want to squeeze your lats, which are these guys right here. You want to squeeze your core. Okay, squeeze your belly, really tighten up. And you want to squeeze your butt all at once. Now, a lot of times, people can get into a decent plank position and they don't really feel much from it, or they can't activate here. So the easiest way to find the activation here, if you're having trouble, is you can put a weight on your small of your back. So what I'll do here is I'm going to roll this guy behind me. I'm going to lift up. I'm going to have part of it on the top part of my butt and the rest of it on the lower part of my back. And I'm going to get into that same plank position, holding it here, really squeezing my core, squeezing my lats, squeezing my butt. And then instead of putting my head down, I'm going to put my head forward, looking straight forward. Now, this is going to take some of the pressure off your low back. And it's also going to allow you to be ready to activate your core so you can get appropriate depth in a squat if that is a problem you are having. Especially if you're one of the people that warms up and you can't quite get depth on your squat until you've done several warm-up sets. These would all be things that you should be doing as you start. Now, I'll do my set of 8 with the bar, and then I will usually go straight to 24% for 8 reps. Then I will roll out or move around other things that need to be rolled out, depending on if they're tight. Then I will go to 39% for 5, 55% for 5, 65% for 5, and then that would be where I would take my jump to that 80% for your 5x5. Okay, and I'll write those percentages in the written part of the post. Now, in terms of other things I might roll out for the squat, the quads are going to be a big one. If you have knee pain when you start off on the squat, or if you're having trouble with your depth, it might be because your quads are too tight. So, to roll out your quads, you're looking to roll out the top part of your quads and the diagonal part. You don't want to roll out your IT band. Your IT band is not a contractile tissue. It's not going to be shortening and lengthening when you squat. The reason you would get IT band irritation would be as if the muscles up here are tight. Okay, so if you ever have that, instead of attacking here, you would attack here. Now for the quads, if you have any knee irritation when you start, you'll go on the quad and on the side of the quad right here too, top and the side. So you'll get right here on the foam roller, leave one leg off, and you would go just up and down on the top of the quad. And if you wanted to get the side, you would lean just a little bit, and this is going to be the part that most people are going to feel the most tightness is going to be on this diagonal plane here, rolling on the quad. The other thing we can do is we can also roll out the adductors. If you're having trouble opening up your hips, you get right here. and roll the inside. Once again, this is going to be a very tender area, so using a regular foam roller is probably going to be best for most people. Other two things for the knee, we can also get the hamstring rolled out. Now, one of these rollers for sticks, the best way to get to the hamstring, you don't want to statically stretch your hamstrings and hold a long stretch because you're going to weaken them. If you're about to squat heavy weight, you don't want to weaken that muscle before you get started. So you put this guy out, you would extend your knee completely, make it straight, and you would grab it and you would roll the underneath of your hamstring, back of your leg, behind the knee, get that popliteus muscle, it's a small extending muscle of the knee. Then you could come through and get the inner thigh as well. The last thing that I like to use in terms of to get my knees warm or to get my knees to be more pliable, to not have any irritation, is I'll do what's called terminal knee extensions. Okay? I'll abbreviate these as TKE most of the time, and I'll take a band, usually a 50-pound band, I'll take my foot through it, and I'll put the band right at the back of the knee, and I'll push through here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my leg that's not in the band forward facing is going to be in the front, and the knee that has the band is going to be further back. I'm going to start on my toe here, I'm going to kick it back a little further, and what I'm going to do is extend the knee all the way down into where the heel touches the floor. I'm going to hold it for just a brief second and come back up. And I'm going to do that, it's just a short pumping motion with a pause. And I will do this for 20 reps on each leg, maybe 2 sets of 20 on each leg. And what that's going to do, it's going to tire out the popliteus muscle momentarily so you can get pressure relief on the knee. Now, a couple other considerations that obviously when you're warming up, some things are going to be tighter, some things are not. You may do all of this, or you only may choose parts of it depending on what is tight or sore from the previous days of training. Another thing you can look at is, sometimes you may be really tight and rolling it out and moving around you might not feel like you're warm enough by the time you get to your heavy sets. So if you need to do more than those 5 warm-ups I was talking about, the bar 24%, 39, 55, 66%, if that's not enough warm-up, you don't want to retake higher weights for your warm-up. So if you feel like you're really going to have a hard time warming up, take the bar for 2 sets of 8 instead of 1 set of 8. That's going to be a lot better than you taking 66% for a second set of 5, because that's almost at your working weight anyway, and that's going to tire you out more than that's going to help you warm up. Okay? It's going to really impede your ability to push your actual working sets because you've spent too much extra time warming up on things that are going to take energy away. Most of these movements that we're doing, the stretching, the rolling out, the planks, none of those are going to take a lot of energy away from you. They're not going to take anything away from your squat day. Doing extra heavy warm-up sets will. The last thing I would like to do in terms of warming up, if I'm having trouble in terms of getting appropriate squat depth, where I feel like my hips are tight, where I'm not opening up, or my back is still tight, you can do lunges or you can do front foot elevated split squats. So typically a lunge, you're going to look at just making sure you're 90 and 90, okay, 90 degrees on this leg, 90 degrees on this one, okay? And so you would just walk through, or you can carry something, get your belly a little bit more engaged, and you can do walking lunges, or you can do front foot elevated split squats. And this is where I typically like to go, because what's going to happen is it's really going to open the hip more than a regular lunge. And what you would do is you would take one leg right here, and you would put the other foot, heel all the way onto the 4-inch. I like 4 inches, that's the best way. If you have CrossFit bumpers, it is the perfect height. And you would lunge all the way down, knee down, still looking for 90 degrees in both, or as close as you can from here. You want to make sure that you're not coming up on the toe on this leg, and that you don't have this happening, and that you certainly don't have this happening, because this isn't going to get us what we're looking for in terms of the stretch needed in the inner hip. So, inner thigh and hip. So, I want to make sure we're driving up and back to where this knee extends. This knee extends. I'm going to keep this heel up. I'm not going to turn and do this. I'm going to stay upward. That way I'm getting some tightening in the inner hip on this side, inner thigh. And so I'm going to come down and push up. And I'm going to do about 8 to 12 reps on each leg. I'm going to step back, make sure my feet are the same distance apart, go to the opposite leg, and you're going to find that one leg is going to be a little bit more difficult to do this movement than the other. We all have a slight hip imbalance. This is going to help us not only correct the imbalance or try to lessen the imbalance, more likely, but it's going to allow us to get our hips a little open up to where it's easier for us to go, hit that depth, get warm for our squat, and hit our big lifts. Hopefully this guide has helped you guys warm up for squats. Hopefully you guys get something beneficial from it. If you have any other questions, just send me a message.